All right, it is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. here in Chicago, Central Time. Welcome to Office Hours, our community Q&A update, Intune, ConfigMgr, MDT, Windows, the good stuff. Andrew, shall we?
We shall.
All right. All right, then this week came through pretty quickly, I'll say.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And I'm sad to no longer be on the beach, but I do have to say it is rather nice to actually be here back at, the setup that I'm used to.
Indeed. All right, and speaking about the week, what's been going on in our little ecosystem?
Yeah, so as usual, I've come across a few things that were either interesting, things that I want to try out, or things that I didn't know about. If you want to share my screen, I'll go ahead and get to sharing them.
Yes, button and click. All right, then.
All right. So this one was particularly interesting, I'll say. Martin Hemkin posted here on Twitter that if you are using the MFA for all users conditional access template and you don't exclude the store for Windows devices, or if you don't exclude the store, Windows devices will fall back to a Pro SKU if your users have that license assigned and they log in with a password. It sounded like it's a very specific bug, but I think that this would be common enough that it's probably worth calling out. It was interesting in that even further down in this thread, one thing that he mentioned was that if you're passwordless and using Windows Hello for Business, this isn't going to trigger because MFA is already is going to pass with that setup. And so this doesn't happen. I just thought it's a pretty wild bug. I'm calling it a bug.
Feature, yeah. No, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep an eye out for this. And basically what he posted here was there is something over on GitHub that has been filed that other people are seeing this. So quite interesting. All right. Another very exciting event. I feel like you and I have been talking about the previous version of this event probably for the last year now. But Microsoft announced a couple of days ago that they're going to be putting on the technical takeoff event again. That's November 27th through November 30th, going from 9 a.m. to 7 a.m. to 11:30 Pacific time. I was already converting it to Central in my head. So this was a great event for us last year, remote event that had, as you can see here, lots of little bite-size, I would say, videos that were 15 to 20-ish minutes, kind of explaining what's on their mind or what's on Microsoft's mind and where they're going with various topics. I know I'm excited to see quite a few things in here. Johan, did you have anything that happened to stick out to you?
Well, that was you that found about the Cloud PKI one. Super interested. I heard about it being presented at WP Ninja, but those sessions were not recorded. And it's quite interesting that the timing of these sessions is also after Ignite. And since these, I know a lot of these sessions are pre-recorded, but the people are actually live during the broadcast answering questions. So if you do have a chance during the technical takeoff to attend when they are sent, you also have a chance to ask questions. And something that I did from the previous technical takeoff, previous event, English Johan, I went back and looked through the comments. And I learned a ton just for reading the questions and answers that came out of these sessions. My all-time favorite from last year is still the one that explained how Intune groups really worked behind the scenes, because they had that product team there doing that presentation. So the challenge is to top that one, Microsoft. Let's go.
Yes, let's see if they're up to the task. So I'm sure the week following this, I'm sure that we'll be covering some of these events as well, talking about some of our favorites and things like that. So look forward to talking about this more in the future. Couple of other quick things that I wanted to share that I came across. These are things that I'm going to look into. I haven't tested them myself yet, but they were interesting enough. I wanted to share them. Peter Klapvik, a couple of weeks ago, posted an article on managing printer mappings with cloud-managed devices, Windows devices specifically. Now, this week, or late last week, it looks like, posted an article on mapping network drives on cloud-managed Windows devices. So this was particularly interesting because something that we talked about this a little bit last week, but something that Johan and I heard time and time again last week was we want to go hybrid, and we'd always ask, why. The question's always why. Why do you think you need to go hybrid? And sometimes, absolutely, the use cases, they need to stay hybrid. But other times, it is things like, well, we need to map network drives, or we need to map printers, or we need to access something. This is potentially another solution that reduces the need for your endpoints to be hybrid joined. So something I'm very much looking forward to. Because although not everybody thinks so, I am aware of several organizations that are still, in fact, mapping network drives. This might be a surprise that not everything has moved to OneDrive yet.
It's true. It's true.
And then I also had, last thing that I'll share here today, back to Martin Hemken again. Looked like this came out last week, but I just didn't share it during office hours. Started a blog series here, it looks like, where he has started a project that's a PowerShell script that will help you visualize what in Intune is assigned to an Azure AD group. So, of course, all of our assignments are based on Azure AD or Entra ID groups in Intune. And so this is going to visualize, if I point to a specific group, these are the applications I have assigned to it. These are the configuration profiles I have assigned to it, and so on. So I'm looking forward to giving this a try as well. And looking forward to seeing what he's got going on in the upcoming improvements. So those are my little tidbits for the week.
All right then. Let me share a few things that I stumbled across. So I'm borrowing that and replacing here. A lot of buttons to press, but there was an announcement about a major update of the KQLSearch.com website. Basically a giant collection of KQL queries that you can borrow and use in your environment. Many of them are for Azure and similar, but you can also steal some tidbits that you can use in ConfigMgr, CM Pivot, etc. But just a great website that will assist you in coming up with good queries for KQL. Then, for those of you using Microsoft Intune and deploying Win32 apps, you may have noticed that there was a new version of the content prep tool released. And if I can spell content prep tool somewhat correctly. So go to the GitHub repository, download the latest version 1.8.5, which is now fresh 2 days ago. So supposed to solve a few crashes that could happen using the old version of the tool. But other than that, same syntax, YOLO scripts, etc. will work if you're driving it through PowerShell. But this is the version you should be using from now on. Then also in Norway at the moment, in Oslo, we have the NIF conference running this week. A lot of community members are there presenting. But I wanted to highlight, I saw Nickolaj was tweeting out, he just did a session today on Microsoft Graph and a few other things, and he tweeted out that he shared his demo scripts from the session, and they were pretty shiny, so I figured I should share them as well. They are up on his GitHub repository, but these are the various demos that he went through in that session, so highly recommend to take a look at those. And then I finally gave in. I've been asked many times about my office setup, and I happened yet today in a call, like people wanted to see the other side of the screen, because obviously what you're seeing now is what the cameras see, and it's not that fancy. It is not, but this is what it looks like. So I have a little desk. I have a few different lights around it. 2 soft boxes here up in front of me, one to my right and one to my left. And then I have 2 fill lights, one of each side. The other one you can't really see, but it's up here. And then I have 2 monitors. I have a desktop here where I'm using most of my work, and a laptop over here. And then there is a bit hard to see, but jammed in between the monitors, this camera I no longer use. That was an old webcam, but about here, there is a Sony a6500. It's a 4 or 5 year old DSLR camera. You can find it on eBay pretty cheap these days. But I'm using that with a fixed lens, and I use that as my webcam. And then I started to make a list. I haven't really finished up all the links yet, but I started to make a list of the different sound cards and microphones and what else that I'm using in the setup. So I can tick that checkbox off now and say, all right, I have done a documentation about the setup. So good starting point as anything, but yeah, that's all I had.
Awesome stuff. I love your setup.
Thank you, sir. And we have comments and questions. We have a bunch of hellos, and then Imran, Matt, Siva, Alexis, and a few others saying hi. And then might be 10, 12 questions already in the queue. Yay.
All right. Well, let's hop into it then.
Okay, let's do it.
Siva's asking, what method do you recommend to get the existing PCs into Autopilot? I'm looking for a way to get the base image installed with drivers and upload the hash so that I can use Autopilot on existing PCs. Our current process of using Autopilot on new PCs with the Dell Ready image works fine from the OEM.
Yeah, I mean, we covered this in multiple sessions last week, but for those of you who were not attending MMS, there are primarily 2 ways to deal with Autopilot for existing devices. We have let's see where I put that one. You have the way of using, let me just reconnect that screen, it got a little bit unfocused. But you have the native sequence template in ConfigMgr, where you download a JSON file with your deployment profile. You put that particular JSON file in a package in ConfigMgr. So you will have a Autopilot package, but what's in that package is really just a downloaded JSON file. If I would go to that data source, it will show me that JSON file. Now, in the sequence itself, like this one here, I did a demo. There will be a step that will simply copy down that JSON file to the right folder in Windows during deployment. And you definitely do not need to go through the entire, sysprep process. Mike in the house has a very elegant post that we shared last week, how to make this process faster. I made a similar version for those of you using MDT that we covered last week. But long story short, it's just an MDT template that does the exact same thing. And that one is also optimized to be running without any sort of sysprep involved. It deploys Windows very quickly, copies down the JSON file, reboots done, and the machine will then be enrolled into Autopilot. The other process is to add in additional scripts. You do the complete registration as part of your deployment process. The beautiful thing about that is that you get a little bit more control, more granular control on what the computer should be named and which group it should be added to. And you can also wait during deployment to see that everything is organized nicely on the back end before you allow the client to continue and come up in out-of-box experience, making sure that it can reach all the endpoints, making sure it is in the right group, that it has an assignment, that it has done the synchronization. So I've been starting working on a blog post for that, rather updating an existing blog post, but I'm not yet finished. That was something that came out of last week's MMS that I probably have to spend a weekend to finish up. It was it's not too hard to set up, but it takes a while to document it in a way so that actually it makes sense. So
On that topic, if you go back to your blog's homepage,
yes, sir. I should be able to do that.
and then scroll down just a little bit further, one more after my post. Right there, we did share this last week as well, but if you're wondering where to get that JSON file, Johans' post right here will help you do that.
Yeah, there's this PowerShell script that you simply define which profile you would like to download from your Intune tenant, and it spits that profile out in this case in the Windows 10 folder, but of course you can save it whenever or wherever you want. So yeah, thank you, sir.
Awesome. Absolutely. Great stuff. Got another question here from Siva. How do I download hard copies of a PowerShell script from the PowerShell gallery? For example, I would like to download the Get Windows Autopilot info script, see the code line by line, or deploy it as an application as needed, or use it offline. So,
like download without installing? Is that the question?
yes, I think if you go to the PowerShell gallery and go to a specific script or module, how do I basically just download that? So if you want to share my screen, I have it up, Johan.
Yep. Coming right there.
So here, if I go to, as long as I understand the question correctly, when you load, so let's say we're on PowerShell Gallery, search for Get Windows Autopilot info. I'm going to click on the link, which is going to take me to the most recent version. Simply click the file list here, and then you can click the link to the script, and there's the whole script. You can copy and paste that as needed.
Yeah, I mean the save module PowerShell commandlet should do the same.
Yep.
Also, because that one downloads a module and its dependencies, but it doesn't install the module or install it and copy it from the installation folder. That would be the trick also. But in this case, I think the save module is more appropriate. Can put that link in the chat to you so you can.
Certainly agree. Use PowerShell to get your PowerShell resources.
Of course, one does not simply.
So, excellent tip. I will make sure that we get those links out there for today.
All right.
All right. Can we do Windows Autopilot or Autopilot pre-provision of Dell ruggedized laptops? And if we have any, can we share our experience on that?
have a bunch of Dells, but I don't have any of the rugged versions. But I haven't yet to see there being a hardware limitation in Autopilot. I've never stumbled across that thing. So it's more like if you can get an image from the vendor that have the right drivers for those devices, Autopilot should work just fine. If you deploy those devices yourself, it should work just fine as long as you put the right drivers in for those models. So I cannot see why they would be any different. It's just another model of a PC.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've got Imran is asking a question over here on LinkedIn. We are in a co-management environment and we have hybrid joined devices using hybrid Autopilot. Most of the laptops are getting a build in the office over the office network. Using an Intune policy, can we make Autopilot faster so it can get the data from its peers by using DO? There's another team who looks after SCCM. At the moment, they're working on the Microsoft Connected Cache, which is going to take a little time. We'd like to use Intune DO policies on these devices.
Yes. The problem might be that I might not trigger quick enough for that scenario. What I have done for Autopilot, and I did blog about that a little while ago, was indeed setting up a VM with a cache server that I use specifically to speed up Autopilot deployments in an office and to make sure those clients got the right information in the right time. We assign that information through DHCP scope options so that the right network would use the right cache server. But I mean, spinning up a single VM, a ConfigMgr VM, and check the connected cache box, that takes like an hour. It's a very quick process because you don't use it for a ConfigMgr server. You just use it as a cache server. You don't have any ConfigMgr clients. You don't have any boundaries. You don't have any of that set up. It's just a site server that run a DP that happen to have that checkbox configured, and then that will happily cache content, and that will speed up Office deployments significantly. I think I have some metrics from one of my labs. Put that one. Here. So if you have your client set up for the right telemetry, you can use the Windows Updates for Business reports. I'm not sure why this one is refusing to load at the moment, but that's another story. It's loading down here in the background. There we go. Magic F5. If I go to Deliver Optimization tab here and wait patiently, you will see that in my lab here, a lot of the content is coming from a connected cache in the lab instead of coming from local friends. And that will speed up the process. Another fun fact with delivery optimization is the service don't care where the settings come from, not one bit. So if you really want to put your heart into it, you can just smack those values into the registry. So if you go to local machine software policies and use like regular policies in Windows DO here, then you can just punch those settings in and the clients are going to use them right away. I've been using that when we deploy classroom machines that we use for our training. So even before the machine comes up like offline in Windows, I'm injecting that information so it's available. And that's something you can add in your Autopilot deployments as well if you deploy the devices yourself. See if I have an example I can share. Don't think I have uploaded those anywhere. We're using that for our Intune training. Maybe this one. Let's see what we have here. Nope, not that one. Here. So this is before the machine even gets started. I was deploying a VM in this case, but I'm loading the offline registry, and I'm just smacking in the value for the cache server. So the moment that machine comes up, it knows how to use a cache server. So that's another option as well. And that does speed up the deployment quite a bit. Microsoft has been working with 2 versions of Connected Cache. I've been a private preview for a good few years now. One for ISPs and one for enterprise organizations. And I believe the ISP one for like AT&T and others went live in March. And I saw something around the new Intune controlled version just recently. See if I can find that post real quick. Because they listed the supported scenarios for that one. And Autopilot was specifically mentioned.
Interesting.
Yes, here. So obviously today, if you want to have something that is fully supported, tested, working well, just spin up a VM and ConfigMgr and use the cache function in it. Don't use it as a config managed server, but use it as a cache. But here are the other 2 previews that are up and running right now. So this was the one for ISPs that I mentioned. And then this one here was for the enterprise and education early preview. So maybe if you sign up for that program, and you can play around with it. But this is what's available right now. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Just writing a to-do to myself here.
Signing up for it? All right, then.
Yep. All right. So, Steve is asking if we open the ConfigMgr console and go to monitoring distribution status client data sources. Could we explain how this data is being collected and presented here?
Yeah. So if I would go to one of my lab servers here, see what I lost my window. There we are. Too many windows open. Let's see. Monitoring, distribution status, client data sources. So these are triggered from the client. It's the ConfigMgr agent that reports the data. So it's not entirely true, this information. It's only data that the ConfigMgr client has downloaded. And that one kicks in every 24 hours. If you wanted to download more quickly, one of our developers at 2Pint wrote a little utility, a command line called Trigger Happy, where you can specify a number of minutes, and the lowest value that you can set is 30. It doesn't support more, but it's still better to wait 30 minutes than 24 hours. But it's a ConfigMgr client that reports up what that has been downloaded up to the site server. So what usually happens in the real world here is that everything that you see around delivery optimization is just a lie, because ConfigMgr doesn't deal with that. ConfigMgr using bits and branch cache and peer cache if you set it up for this. But you will see if you are using a cloud DP and I have a local DP, and at this lab here, I have a few clients running branch cache in this particular location. If I would set it back to maybe 2 months and do all boundary groups, see if it refreshes. This one is not fast and it's not real time. But you have this breakdown of what you've been downloading. If you're interested in better visualization, I recommend reaching out to us directly. We have developed real-time graphs for this that are, dashboards.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. All right. Nathan is asking over on YouTube, we have Office 365 64-bit assigned to all devices during Autopilot enrollment status page. How would you go about allowing users themselves opting for the 32-bit version instead through the company portal?
So I'm assuming it's a required. Okay, I see what they wanted.
So the only thing that I can think of, and please chime in if you've got some other ideas, Johan, is for the users that may want to request that, you could create a Win32 app for the M365 apps, and in that config.xml, you point to the 32-bit version and make that app available to that group of users or the devices that those users are using. I have not tested this, obviously, myself. It's just that would be one way that I could think you might be able to do it. Of course, if possible, I mean, the recommendation these days is to use the 64-bit version of M365 apps. So if you can stick on that as best as possible, I would try to do that. But if you make that other application available after the fact, that in theory, I think, should download the 32-bit version of the apps and install it.
My only concern there is that if you have assigned that one required to all devices, that you may have to remove it first.
True.
For Autopilot, it might be better to combine the two versions in one app and allow the users to select. There are options where you can prompt for things during Autopilot. PSADT through Service UI is one of them. I have seen organizations using task sequences to pop up a little dialog box that you can select things. Not like a pure Autopilot behavior, but you can definitely prompt for things even though Autopilot happen to run a system. The same way you can prompt for things in ConfigMgr even though running a system. So maybe that.
All right.
If you are interested in learning more about what you can do through PSADT, our good friend Matthias Malkerson and Nickolaj Andersen, primarily Matthias in this case, they did a ton of sessions in their new, or somewhat new, Youngling the Cloud YouTube channel. So YouTube, I may have to search for this one. I don't remember the exact name. MS Endpoint Manager, I should have guessed that one. But if you go to videos here and you search for PSADT, you will find these series of the PowerShell app deployment kit, and we see more and more organizations using this also for Intune applications, not just ConfigMgr apps. So great advanced wrapper that allows you to, for example, select things. So maybe that.
All right.
Long answer to short question.
Oh, that's how these things often end up in this world. All right. This one is definitely for you, Johan. So this is from Alexis over on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for all the Intune and MDT documentation. It's been very helpful in setting this up. Do you think MDT will remain functional for long?
I mean, MDT is very much on-premises deployment solution. There are no dependencies on any cloud service or anything like that. So what's working today is going to work equally well in 10 years' time. Question is, will the current version be supported or support the versions of Windows that will be available in 10 years' time? I have no idea. What I do know is that even though that it's not supported, the old MDT version that was updated in 2018, so 5 years ago, can still deploy Windows 11 23H2 that was just released. It can even do build reference image of it because I tested out that for a customer. Microsoft don't support it, but as I see it, MDT is just a bunch of VB scripts running in WinPE. And even in the Windows 11 23H2, and Microsoft has announced deprecation of VB script, it's still in there. They still added it by default. So it's going to work for years to come. It's just that Microsoft don't test and support it anymore. But if you think to it like to the core, what it really is, and Leon here agrees a lot, it's a script that runs a supported command from ADK. If you come into an argument with Microsoft to support and say, I'm having a problem applying this image or injecting that driver, ditch MDT out of the question completely. Open up WinPE and run that command yourself. And then you troubleshoot that one, because that support will help you with, because you are using a supported version of the ADK. So I'm not too worried, but it's sad. I hate to see that Microsoft did not continue the development of MDT. It's been a fantastic platform, and I know a lot of folks basically building their careers with it. It's just a great deployment solution. But no updates, and it will go away, as it seems.
All right. Matt has a question here on YouTube that I think I can answer. I'm happy he asked. MMS at MOA coming up in May 2024. Do we know where to find discounts? If you would like to share my screen, Johan.
Yes.
Good news for the conference, but maybe not so good news for you, Matt. The only discount that was offered already was the early bird discount, and it sold out faster than it's ever sold out before, which, again, great news for MMS. For those that are in the education space, though, you can see here, you can email for an education discount. As far as I'm aware, and for the last 8 years now, those have been the only 2 discounts that have really been available.
Yeah.
That said, registration is obviously open for the next iteration of MMS, which is also fantastic. So for those of you that are interested in joining in May, please head over to the MMS website and go ahead and register. Sooner the better.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic conference. It's just, if you're interested in learning more about security, PowerShell, Intune, ConfigMgr, and every possible combination in between, this is the conference to attend. It's a great conference.
Absolutely. I would just reiterate exactly what you just said. I mean, this has been feels like going home when we go to that conference in a way.
Yeah, it's extended family.
Exactly.
More or less.
Exactly. Yeah, on the topic of MMS, Robert also asked if there are any recorded sessions, and no, there are not. This is a fully in-person event.
Yeah. But you will also learn things there that you will never learn anywhere else just because they are not recorded. You will have the Microsoft product team there, and they will share information that is shared there.
Absolutely. I did see Dean commented as well. Not only is registration open, it is a great value. Yes, it is. Agreed.
Thank you, sir. Cannot agree more. Yep.
All right. We also have somebody joining us first time here. Discovered us at MMS last week and decided to join the club. So thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yep.
That's fantastic. Love to see it.
All right. So what else do we have?
Well, Matt has a question. His SCCM console is taking up to 30 seconds to load. What do I need to do to make it run faster?
Well, this particular one, I had an offline discussion regarding that earlier, and normally these delays are depending on either DNS being, wrong and it cannot find it quick enough, the server, but usually fragmentation of the SQL database. But I don't think that's the case in this one. I would have to spend some time profiling or diving into why that is. But usually, if you have a performant system for ConfigMgr, where you have the proper layout with disks and all that, and enough temp files, and all the usual customizations you would do to configure the SQL database, it should not take SQL or the ConfigMgr console 30 seconds to load on a system that is not heavily used. Something to try is, of course, is to try to open that console from a different machine on the network and see if the performance are the same compared to running it on the site server, and also double check the fragmentation level on the databases, because I know you, Andrew, because I have witnessed it, have seen what performance difference it can make just by spinning up on some additional temp files on a system that didn't have that from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen, I had TempDB misconfigured on a system for some time and reconfigured it based on one of your blog posts, and a night and day difference.
So, yeah. So I think I will have to follow up on that one offline there. It requires more research.
All right. So Dean just had some comments on earlier. We were talking about the get Windows Autopilot info script, using that more so in testing than in production. There's some follow-up comments there based on Siva's question earlier. So thank you for chiming in there, Dean.
Awesome.
Russell is asking, how can I automate clearing client cache? It's a tongue twister on SCCM clients. I have some devices with small storage drives and the cache doesn't clear space for new deployments.
That would be a healthy dose of PowerShell to do that. Let me share my screen. If you apparently a dog is very interested in clearing the ConfigMgr cache. In all honesty, I think he's more interested in finding another side of a door, but he'll have to wait a little bit.
Yes.
let's see what I have here.
Unless he's got some PowerShell ideas.
Oh, you never know. I mean, here is a script that allows you to get cache elements. And here you can see I have a few packages that are in this particular cache. You can look up those packages and see what they are. For example, you can figure out if a package is a software update. Maybe you want to clear that one out, or you want to keep it and delete something else. Because then you can also do a clean cache. By simply looping through elements in that cache and nuke them. This particular example is deleting them all, but as you see, it's a for each loop. You can put in conditions and say, hey, if it's this type of package to this package, delete it and keep the others. And this is fully supported. This is part of the client. Just going in at the folder structure and deleting files, do not do that, because that will break the cache management. So going into this folder here and start to nuke things, that's a no bueno. That don't do that. If you want to delete them, do it the official way and use PowerShell to figure out what to delete. So,
all right, great tip.
Thank you.
All right. Imran is asking, we're looking to use Autopatch for the in-place upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Sorry, that just went away as another question came in. If I'm correct, DO will play more than connected cache. You have an Intune policy blog you shared some time ago on the. Oh yes, your I think your DO Intune policy blog post over on the 2pint blog.
Okay, I don't know which one you mean. Let me find that one. We have shared this before, but it deserves sharing again.
Yes.
Let's see. Here. So DO settings for Intune, and just by configuring these very, very basic settings, you will find that your peer-to-peer efficiency will jump up significantly from the default 10-20% up to a 60 to 80% peering. And obviously, if you have a connected cache server, if you tell a client to go to that one, it will go to that one. So then you don't have that much peering going on anymore, but you have a local cache server on your subnet or your network that is being used instead. A friendly tip for those of you that have gone up to Windows 11 or have later versions of Windows 10 where you can still set this, you can configure that the new discovery method that DO supports, which will reduce heavily the number of connections to Microsoft. So if you set that policy right, all is good. Should probably update this one here because they did fix it recently. So it's been a while.
All right.
But yeah.
Let's see here. So Alexis, who was asking about MDT earlier over on LinkedIn, thank you very much for the explanations. MDT really is a very useful solution. I don't understand something. The connected cache configuration manager documentation mentions that you need licenses for each device, for example, Windows E3 license. But connected cache for enterprise and education, it is mentioned that this is free. Is there a difference?
For what I've heard, the new cloud-based offerings for connected cache will not be free. But I haven't seen any pricing or anything like that. I just been told that they're not intended to be a free platform. But we'll have to wait until that is like fully available until I can say yes or no with like a certainty to that.
Yeah, and oftentimes if that's we've seen numerous times over the last year or two where new features have rolled out in preview, and they've said it's free during the preview, but will have a charge. There's just been a couple of other examples of that happening.
Yeah.
Defender vulnerability management comes to mind. Here, Alexis just shared a link to the documentation there.
Yeah, so that was the ISP version for internet service providers that was referred to. But indeed, I think it's the preview state that it's in, but I don't know for sure. Maybe Ignite will have some information when it's starting now in 2 weeks' time, or not 2 weeks, 1 week's time. It's coming up quickly.
All right, we'll have to keep an eye out on that. All right, I've got a great, fantastic comment here from Matthew over on LinkedIn that I wanted to share. Many years ago, I accepted an offer to be a senior engineer tasked with fixing, quote unquote, fixing SCCM. I was absolutely not qualified for the job at all and couldn't believe they hired me. It was my big break. First website I found when trying to learn about SCCM was Deployment Research. Since then, I have made quite the career out of this. Thank you, Johan.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the mention. I'm happy it helped.
It's interesting. Johan's very humble, so I'm going to just add to this. It's fun being in. I've had the opportunity to be close to you and be in your sphere for the last couple of years, and to hear the amount of times that people get to say that is just a testament to how much you have done for the community. It's just fantastic. So I love that comment.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Jesse is asking, have any of you set up passkey in Entra yet? If so, how is this set up? I have not.
I have not.
We can talk about creating Entra groups and users and conditional access all day long, but there's been some really cool stuff that I've seen announcements for recently on the Entra side of things. I just don't think it comes up as often enough for us to. And Dean's got a follow-up comment here seconding that. Johan is the expert for ConfigMgr and MDT knowledge.
All right, now I'm blushing over here. So,
hey, sometimes we got to do that.
All right then. You guys planned this, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Dean was just texting me on the side right now.
I figured as much. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a praise Johan office hours today. We've got a third from Russell.
All right.
William Ridley helped me. Thanks. We go way back. Matt agreeing. Yes.
All right.
Poor Johan. Hey, this is what happens when you put in all of the work that you've put in. It's hard work.
It's an hour here or there, yes.
But I do appreciate, one thing that I've learned from you that you have long spoken about. Giving back to the community is so important to you. It's core to who you are. I mean, that's inspired me. That's inspired many of the others on here, I'm sure. Dean has been somebody that's been providing to the community quite a bit, especially over the last couple of years here. And anybody else that's listening in on here, if you've got something to share, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I said, I've learned from you. Share it. Write a blog post about it. Somebody, if you have a question about it and end up with a solution, somebody else likely needs that solution as well. So to follow in Johan's footsteps, go ahead and start sharing. It's not as scary as it feels coming from my experience, just being able to do that.
I mean, something I often hear from folks that are they have something they wanted to share, but they are always afraid of it's not going to be good enough, it's not going to be unique enough. It's always a value of sharing information. It will always have your footprint, your touch, your angle to it. Obviously, you cannot just copy and paste someone's post. That's not what I mean, but you can definitely describe a problem you had, a solution you find, and use your words to describe it, and that's going to be a great contribution, because people will search for it, they will find it, and it will help them as much as it helped you. There was a time also where blogging was also a great way just to document things that have been done or that I've been doing. And over the years, apparently memory is not what it used to be, but I'll be searching for something, and sure enough, stumble across a blog post that sounds interesting, just to realize, oh crap, I wrote that one. I just forgot that I did, but it did show up, and it happened more than once.
That's too funny.
Yeah. Anyhow, dang, that hour went by blazing.
Yeah, it did.
We have 10 minutes left, though, so if there are any more questions. Right, good sir? Right.
Yep. Jesse just jumping in, learned about you years ago and have followed and learned a lot from you and Michael Nystrom.
The deployment bunny himself. Yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
All right. I do not see more questions in the queue there. So thank you, everyone, for the kind words. And we will certainly hope to see you again next week. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
See if I can manage to get my hand free so I can start the shutdown video or the outro.